Alright, I'm going to tie a bunny leech, and I'm starting off with a size 8 streamer hook, and I've got just a copper cone head on there. You've got options if you want to add weight or not. If you're fishing an intermediate line or a sink tip, then you probably don't need to. If you want the option to fish this with a weight forward floating line to get it down, then you can add weight. So I'm going to add this just to give me some versatility. So I'm just going to take maybe 6 wraps or so of lead and I'll push it up and have that seat into the cone head there. The color of this fly is going to be a chartreuse or a green, so I'm going to use 140 chartreuse thread. Just get that started behind the lead there and advance it up and bring it back down, and then I can snip that excess. Alright, this has really one material. You can add more if you'd like, but it's just going to be a cross-cut zonker strip. And so I've got it here in my green, and I'm going to clear a section of this that I'm going to tie it in by. So I'm just going to get a nice flat end, and I'm just going to pull some of that hair off so that I have a proper tie-in point. And I'll bring my thread down to about the point in the hook here, and I'll tie in the tail. If you find that when you fish these, the tail itself is getting caught up in the hook, one thing that you can do is add just a loop piece of monofilament, stiff monofilament underneath, and that'll hold the tail upright. It will lessen some of the movement of the fly, so I try to avoid that, but if you find that they're getting real tangled up in the hook, you can certainly do so. I'm going to cut this to length, and so if you want to measure it to be a hook shank, you can fold it back over itself. I always like the tail to be considerably longer, so maybe 1.5 times the hook shank. And when I cut this, I don't want to cut straight down. I'm going to use just the skin underneath, and I'm going to make my cut. And what that does, and you'll see here in a minute, is it gives it that tapered look. See the fly? It gives it a little bit additional length and that tapered look to it. So now that I've got that cut and tied in, I'm going to bring back and get another piece of my zonker. So I've got that there, and I'll pull off again just a tip so that I can tie it in. If you want to add flash to the pattern, now's the time. You can run some crystal flash or some Flashaboo off the back of that to give it some more pop. I'll tie that in, and I'll advance the thread back up to behind the cone head. And now I can just start to wrap this. But what I'll do is every time I make a wrap, I'm going to pull the material back on itself so it gets that tapered look. So I'm overlapping my wraps just slightly so that it pushes those fibers back. And so I'll wrap this just up to behind the cone here. And take a couple of wraps right through, and then clip again at the skin. So now I'll hold this all back, and I'll start to finish the fly. And I want to make sure that I'm capturing all of the material in there when I make my head. One thing that I like to do in a couple of my patterns is add a piece of hackle here. You certainly can do that. If you use like a barred hackle, it gives it just another piece of visual interest. So I'll tie in my head here behind the cone head, and this helps lay some of those back down. And then I'll just whip finish. And then when this gets wet, that will all lay back on top of itself to give you that Leech look. And that is a bunny leech.